Welcome to the webinar. I am Eileen Murphy and I'll be assisting Anita Gallagher during this webinar. It is also going to join us Gloria Mainet, that is a HIPGive Latin America representative. I just want to mention that by default, all attendees are mute. So if you have any question or comment, you can write it in the panel of the right at any time. If we don't see them at the time, we will have time for questions and answers at the end. After the webinar has ended, we are going to send you via email a survey. So please, if you can take 5 minutes to answer it. It is very important for us to improve our webinars. Thank you and welcome, Anita.
Thanks very much, Eileen. I've just put up on the screen our pictures, our contact information. As Eileen said, I'm Anita Gallagher. I lead training and outreach here at HIPGive. It's great to be with you today. Let me make this sure it goes the right way. Brilliant. So this is the outline for what we're talking about today, the third in our webinar series. A lot of information to get through. We're going to introduce the topic of Hispanic Heritage, our latest matching funds campaign on HIPGive, and the specific title is Latinos Give Their Vote. We'll be explaining that. We'll give you some very concrete information about the contest and a new date for your diaries. The Matching Funds Day is going to be on Tuesday, September 27th. Gloria will be here to explain more information about the contest. And in the third part, we're going to share some ideas for how you can create a really standout campaign, be it in Hispanic Heritage or later on as we come through the autumn and the end of year crowdfunding campaign period. And we've been talking in previous webinars about best practice. We've been looking at textbook ideas for how to do fundraising and crowdfunding, and today we're going to be talking about real-life examples of how organizations like yours have been working and achieving great success on their crowdfunding through HIPGive. So let's get right into it. Again, this is not wanting to go my way today. Here we go. We're going to be talking about Latinos Give Their Vote, our new contest. We're carrying it out in the context of National Hispanic Heritage Month. If you're not familiar with Hispanic Heritage Month, this is a month where all through the United States people celebrate the history, the culture, and the contribution of American citizens that have Hispanic heritage or Latino roots. The month runs from the 15th of September to the 15th of October, and it's actually a very official part of American culture. It was made official, first of all, by presidential decree and then passed into law. It runs from the 15th of September to October because those are the dates in which many Latin American countries celebrate their independence. It also includes Columbus Day or Dia de la Raza on the 12th of October. So we think it's a great opportunity for HIPGive to celebrate the great work that Latino organizations are doing to help communities across the states and even wider afield. Now in HIPGive, we've been working really hard as a platform to go further to help great causes for social impact in Latino communities. We've always wanted to be more than just a technological platform for financial transactions. We have a growing community of people interested in social impact. We have individual donors, institutional donors, and we really wanted to be able to give them a greater connection to HIPGive and the projects that make up the platform. So we're going to do something very special for this contest in Hispanic Heritage. And I have a video. Let me just change screens because it's with great pleasure that I can announce this short video by Diana Campomor. She's the president of Hispanics in Philanthropy, our parent organization as it were. And she recorded this brief introduction to what our Hispanic Heritage Latinos Give Their Vote campaign is all about.
This fall, we're facing a very important election, and that is why I'm asking you to join our campaign, Latinos Give Their Vote. In partnership with NALEO, with Mi Familia Vota, Unidos, and many others, we will make history by making sure that we get our people out to vote. Through our campaign, Latinos Give Their Vote, you can participate in this historic effort. Together we will ensure a better future for ourselves and for America.
So you see in the presentation a quick recap of that message, but we have Gloria on the line. Gloria is one of the leaders of HIPGive, one of the intellectual leaders, one of the on-the-ground leaders who talks to communities and organizations all over. And Gloria, I'd love for you to be able to explain a little bit more about this new concept that we're launching through the Hispanic Heritage Contest.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anita. So for Hispanic Heritage Month this year, through HIPGive wanted to do something a little bit different that goes along the lines of our evolving trajectory on HIPGive of not only being a crowdfunding platform and tool and resource for nonprofits working with Latino communities, but also an online community of individuals invested in social impact in Latino communities across the Americas. And so given the importance of the Latino vote in the upcoming U.S. presidential elections and its overlap with Hispanic Heritage Month, which runs from 15th of September through 15th of October, we've decided to launch an awareness campaign called Latinos Give Their Vote. And the Latinos Give Their Vote title and hashtag evolved from an ongoing social media movement that HIPGive has been building called Latinos Give. And it's where we share different stories of generosity and participation of Latinos and how they give back to their communities through donations, through volunteering, through culture, leadership, etc. And so what we are doing for Latinos Give Their Vote is we are partnering with leading civic participation organizations in the U.S., including NALEO, Mi Familia Vota, Unidos, among others, to bring awareness about the importance of Latino voter registration and get out the vote activities, as well as Latino voter rights during the upcoming election, and to basically aggregate all of this information about the important work that the sector is doing around Latino civic engagement, and to create a greater awareness with HIP and HIPGive networks and the greater public through different media partnerships. In addition, we are inviting nonprofits serving Latino communities to crowdfund for their causes on HIPGive during Hispanic Heritage Month under the Latinos Give Their Vote campaign. And organizations that work specifically on civic engagement in the U.S. with Latino communities will be eligible to compete for $10,000 in matching funds that HIP will be providing to incentivize donations and duplicate donations that come to the platform to these civic participation organizations during September 27th, which is our new matching fund day, and September 27th is National Voter Registration Day. So it's another opportunity for your organizations to align your messaging around this is what we're doing around civic engagement and get out the vote activities, and this is how you can support. And so aligning a call to action with, to donate, along with a call to action to get involved, participate, spread the word, and share the content about Latinos Give Their Vote and the important work that the sector is doing this fall. Also, I'd like to mention that for this specific contest, HIPGive will be waiving all administrative fees for any organizations that are crowdfunding on the platform. Generally, there's a 3.1% administrative fee that applies to projects that are successful in meeting their goal, and 6% to organizations that are not successful, as a different incentive scale to have organizations generally think about what their fundraising goal will be and how to set a realistic goal and how to mobilize your donors. We are not an all or nothing platform. We are a platform that basically gives organizations the amount of funds that they raised, regardless if they met their goal or not. So while in the past we have applied this administrative fee scale specifically for Hispanic Heritage Month and the Latinos Give Their Vote contest, we will not be charging administrative fees. We'll be waiving all fees, and so that is another exciting opportunity for your organization to make the most of your crowdfunding campaign.
Brilliant. Thanks, Gloria. That's great news. let's move on here. I just wanted to put that up. So if people want to take part and they really want to build into part of this wider campaign, they should use the hashtag Latinos Give Their Vote, correct?
Exactly, and also on HIPGive, in addition to highlighting organizations crowdfunding on the platform during this campaign, we will be generating content specifically about Latino civic engagement organizations and calls to action to the community of how they can get involved, what are their voter rights, and what platforms they can turn to get registered and get out the vote.
Brilliant. So that's a great exciting new move for HIPGive. I do want to take a moment or two just to explain to people maybe the technical, the operational details about the contest itself, the day of the matching funds, which is 27th of September. As we said, any organization can launch a campaign on HIPGive during this time, but it will be the organizations that are specifically working in areas of civic participation and voter registration that are eligible for the matching funds at this time. And we're going to have $10,000. They're going to be released in 4 increments of $2,500 at 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and 4 p.m., 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the 27th of September. And if you're not familiar with the matching funds system that HIPGive uses, we have over time experienced or tried out different ways of releasing the matching funds, and we prefer this option of releasing it in 4 different times during the day, because it means that the money doesn't run out quickly. It means that everyone, no matter in what time zone they are, have a chance to make a donation and have it count at a time of day that it's easy to make a donation. And it also gives more organizations more opportunities to have access to the funds. It spreads it out a little bit more evenly. So it's the way that we have found to be most equitable and most advantageous both for the donors and for the recipient organizations. Just to give you a quick example, if you're still wondering how specifically that could work for you, it means that at 8 o'clock in the morning we will put aside $2,500 for matching funds, and as the donations come in, if someone gives $100 to a cause, then we will put aside $100 of that amount to match that donation. If the next person gives $50, again that will be $50 matched, and the success continue that way until all of the $2,500 have been assigned as matching funds. Now, if that happens between 8 and 8:30 a.m. and we've run out of that first group of $2,500 by 8:30 a.m. and someone comes along at 8:35 and makes a donation, then their donation will not count as a matching fund. Their donation will not be duplicated for the organization in question at that time because the first group of 2,500 funds has already been used up. However, if they were to come back at 10 o'clock in the morning when we release the next set of funds for $2,500, then after 10 a.m. the donations will again be matched until the $2,500 at 10 a.m. are all counted for. So there's chances to have your donations matched throughout the day. In case you're wondering what would happen if a big donor came along and at 10 o'clock decided to give a donation straight up of $2,500, we'd be worrying because then all of the matching funds for that time period would be used up in one single donation. We don't want that to happen, obviously, so we establish a ceiling or a maximum limit of how much we will match in each donation, and that limit for this contest is $200. So even if someone donates $2,500, $2,000, $1,000, doesn't matter how big, there's no maximum on the actual amount of funds they can donate, but even if they do donate $1,000, we will only be matching $200. So the organization will come away with $1,200 in that example. And that means that the matching funds pot will only decrease by a maximum of $200 in each donation. It may sound a little bit complicated if you're not familiar with the system, but like we say, it really does work. If you want some more information specifically about contests and matching funds, do look through our blog posts on our website on hipgive.org, and you'll find there's a specific blog post on our previous webinar which focused entirely on contests and matching funds. You'll get a lot more specific information there about how the matching funds work and also how to communicate to your donors or potential donors this invitation to donate on specific times during the day. it can be confusing to work out a simple way to say those messages, so we give you some great examples in that previous webinar, and you can go online. It's easy to access through the blog. As I said, find the post about the last webinar, and you can access a recording and download the presentation. I also wanted to just point out how easy it is to sign up for the contest, but you do need to make sure that you fill in the form and select it. So I'll change the view over to the website. Hopefully some of you will already be have usernames to go onto HIPGive, but in this part up here, I'm already logged in, but if you were not to be logged in, you would go to the top and create a username and a password. You would then be in a dashboard for your particular organization and user. You can have several projects up and running, but when you're filling in the project form, step one is the basic information. And I just wanted to point out that it's very important, if you do want to access, have an opportunity to access matching funds, you need to click in this question, part of a HIPGive special contest. You need to make sure you say yes, and then you can choose from the drop-down menu the name of the contest, which in this case is Hispanic Heritage Latinos Give Their Vote. So do make sure you answer those questions correctly, so we know that you are wanting to be eligible for this contest. There's more information about the types of organizations, the paperwork that you have to annex to your application, but it's pretty standard for nonprofit organizations. The other thing I wanted to talk about is just the duration of your campaign. As Gloria said, campaigns can be different lengths, but we tend to recommend between 30 and 45 days. And it's important to give us time from the time that you submit your project form. We need roughly 3 working days to be able to review your project, review your organization's documentation if it's the first time that you fundraise with us on HIPGive, just to validate that you're a nonprofit. And sometimes we actually help out organizations with a couple of tips about how to make their project stronger in fundraising terms. But aside from the 3 days that we need as a turnaround for your project application, it's important that you have a little bit of time to familiarize yourself with how it all works and have your project live a couple of days at least before the matching day funds. In fact, when we talk to organizations that have participated in projects in the past, they say that you need probably even up to a week to be able to have your project live. That means you have the link. You can include the web link to your campaign page and all of your planned communications, be it on email, social media, etc. And it also means that you have a little cushion of time to build up those initial donations. Everyone loves to give to a crowdfunding campaign when they think there's a real chance that they're going to reach the goal. So it's really useful if on the day of the matching funds, your campaign is not in zero. So in those first couple of days, maybe leading up to the 27th, if you start your campaign on the 20th, or even if you use the 15th of September as the launch date because it coincides with the launch of Hispanic Heritage Month, then you'll have time to get your most committed donors to give those initial lead-in donations, and then you'll be able to go even further on the day of the Matching Funds contest as people help you to push you towards your project goal. So just think carefully about what the desired start date will be, and that's the date that we will publish your project live on the platform. Going back to the presentation now. So those are the details. We'll be publishing more information about the contest on our social media, sending it out to you. What happens if you are not a civic participation organization, or maybe your main work is actually not being carried out in the US right now? You're dealing with education, with health, with many other issues. Well, don't worry, there's still an awful lot of benefits to participating, to running a campaign on HIPGive during September and October this year. The first one, as Gloria already mentioned out, is brilliant news. We're waiving administrative fees for projects which are raising funds during Hispanic Heritage Month. So that's a great opportunity to have even more money for your cause. Because of the great topical content that we'll be producing, that we're working with our allies in producing, because of just the sheer relevance of this debate about Latino involvement and the Latino vote in a presidential election that's concerning people all over the US and Latin America, there'll be more and more eyes on our platform and on what we're generating as a discussion point. So we will see a growth in the community of donors. We already have quite a large group of committed individuals, institutional donors, who look to HIPGive as a window onto really important projects that are taking part in Latino communities, and we know that that community of donors is going to grow. And also, thanks to the ally organizations, thanks to high-level commitment from HIP leadership, you've seen Diana Campoamor, the president of HIP, is already hugely on board with this campaign, there's going to be much greater visibility for all of the projects on the platform, more eyes on all the projects. So it's a great time for you to just take the plunge and get fundraising on HIPGive during September and October. However, if you're thinking, well, maybe I need a bit more time, maybe this one is not quite for me, don't worry, we still have 2 more contests before the end of the year. On the 5th of October, we'll be celebrating Crowdfunding Day in Mexico. This is an initiative in Mexico to promote greater confidence in online fundraising and especially crowdfunding. And we're carrying out an alliance with HIPGive. Unfortunately, this is only for projects which are based in Mexico. You could be an organization based somewhere else, but the project itself that you're fundraising for should take place in Mexico. And then, of course, coming up to the end of the year, November 29th is Giving Tuesday, and that will be a huge focal point for HIPGive, a great way to celebrate the end of the year. We'll have an even larger pot of funds for matching fund donation, and we hope to be able to support social impact projects across all of the US and the Americas. And we'll actually be creating little mini sites to incentivize giving in each country, so it's going to be a really exciting initiative. And as they say, well, just watch this space. So now you know what's coming up on the calendar on HIPGive. We wanted to give you some ideas of how to create a really standout campaign. Crowdfunding is growing immensely. There's so many more options for people of how to give online, and sometimes it's hard to make your campaign stand out. So one of the questions that we most frequently get in the team at HIPGive is what can I do to make my campaign meet its goal? And before I answer that question, I'd like to throw that question out to you. So here is a quick poll. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what is the feature that is most important in running a standout campaign. How can your campaign get noticed and get people giving? Do you think it's because of the project concept, what you're crowdfunding for? Do you think it's the project budget and how much you're asking for? Do you think it has to do with the promotional materials on what you use to support your ask? Or do you think it's all about the campaign execution, how and who you ask? Let me know what you think about the most important feature in running a standout crowdfunding campaign. Okay, just under half of you already voted. Maybe you're thinking carefully about this. Don't worry, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just to sound out your opinions and what matters most. I'll leave it open for about 10 more seconds, give you a chance to vote. Okay, interesting. Let me see if I can get this up on the screen for you. So 25% of you believe that the most important thing is the project concept, and 75% believe that it's campaign execution about how and who you ask. And I'm delighted that your opinion coincides with our opinion in the HIPGive team, because that's exactly what we're focusing on right now in the next section. All of these things are important, obviously, but I think if you follow the 80-20 rule, there's a couple of things that can really just tip the balance and make your project stand out from the crowd. So, as promised, we'll be using real-life examples. We've used in previous webinars, we've been talking through best practice, through textbook ideas. There's a lot of information out on the internet about how to crowdfund nowadays, but we really wanted to show you how organizations like yours are crowdfunding and doing it very successfully on HIPGive. So the first example that we have is from San Miguel School. This is an intermediate school in the La Salle model and based in Washington, D.C., and they work hard to transform the lives of Latino kids and help them break the cycle of poverty through a high-quality education. And they've actually carried out 3 campaigns on HIPGive in the previous months and years, but we're going to be focusing now on one, which I hope to show you here. So the campaign that I really wanted to focus on today, as an example, is Young Leaders Today, Tech Leaders Tomorrow. And as you can see, they had an original goal of $4,900, and they ended up raising over $13,000 in this campaign. And we wondered, well, how did they do it? What was the key to their success? And as I move down, you'll see in their pitch something really interesting. They jump straight right into the pitch. Can we change the lives of middle school immigrant Latino boys and give them a brighter future? Sí se puede. And here it is. help us provide a collapsed set of iPads to at-risk and low-income students in DC. That sentence is entirely clear about what the focus of this project is. And they actually are very clear, and they reiterate it just a little bit further down. Our goal is a classroom set of iPads, a necessary tool to help our students succeed in high school and gain access to career opportunities in STEM sector and beyond. And why do I think this is so important in achieving success and creating a standout campaign? It's just the clarity. People understand from this project exactly what needs to be done, why it's important, and what their money is going to be spent on. And if you look at even our platform and a lot of other crowdfunding sites, you'll see that sometimes many organizations are not so specific. They ask for their Santa Claus list, as we say. They ask for everything, or they describe in great detail everything that their organization does. Now that's understandable. Organizations that we work with do great work, and they should be proud of it. But this is not an annual fund. You know, crowdfunding is about being specific. Crowdfunding is temporary. It's a short-run campaign. It's short-term. It runs for 2, 4, 6 weeks. So I think it's really vital, if you want to be successful, that you can be very specific about how you formulate your project. So in the experience of San Miguel School, that was a key factor, and I had the privilege of talking to Maria Rose Kane, who was the campaign coordinator, and she said about that campaign, we've been able to do things at the school that we would never have been able to, like the iPads. They were a specific need, and we were able to buy many more in the end. And we definitely saw a net rise in donors compared to the same month last year. So if we were to draw out some learning points about how you could copy their approach, be specific, and make that work for an increase in donors, let's break it down. First of all, evidently, try to focus your project on a specific, tangible, short-term goal. You have many important things that you want to fundraise for in your organization, but try and choose 1 or 2. Something that's small, something that people will believe is actually very achievable in the short term, that will generate an idea of success in their heads, that it's easier to reach success. People want to donate more frequently and greater amounts when they think that their donation is really going to make a difference and is going to be able to achieve the goal in the short term. The second thing that you need to do very carefully is explain concisely how your project solves a real and important problem. Now, we saw that in the pitch that San Miguel published. It's very short, it's very concise. They explain in a couple of lines. We work with these boys and these pupils. We need the iPads, and iPads are vital because of the role they play in STEM subjects. If you can't sum up the idea and the concept and the need behind your project in 2 or 3 short lines, it's probably going to be very difficult to communicate that to potential donors. So really work hard to think, is this easy to communicate? Can we relate it to a really important problem that people care about? And if you can't do it in 2 or 3 lines, maybe it's time to go back to the drawing board. And the third point is the importance of aligning your fundraising objectives, or the amount that you're asking, relates a little bit to the budget of your project, to your audience and to your target donors. And now when I was speaking with Maria Rose, it was interesting to see how she had 2 different audiences, or 2 different groups of target donors that she thought were going to be very much aligned with this request for money for iPads. First of all, she asked existing donors of San Miguel School, and now these were people who had already probably given their donation at some point in the year. And they're people who are committed to the school and they're giving already. But she said that what was interesting, that because it was such a specific ask for a specific item, that they were willing to give more, or willing to give again. So that's one way that they were able to achieve a net rise in donations compared with the same month last year. And then very interestingly, Maria Rose was able to use this project, this campaign, to reach out to people who were target donors, who were potential donors. And they had a list of people who at some point in time had come in touch with the school, had maybe expressed an interest in donating, and had never quite gotten around to doing so. So they sent an email saying to these people something along the lines of, you've expressed an interest in supporting our school in the past. We're beginning this campaign. It's a great opportunity to get involved. you can do so by making a donation from this amount upwards and giving a very reasonable or very accessible dollar amount that would make a difference to the campaign. And that gave those people a really clear incentive to move from being a passive supporter into being an active donor. And as a result of those two actions, as I said, there was a net increase in donors and donations compared with last year. So as well as the funds raised and how that translated into the number of iPads, in fact, San Miguel came out of the campaign with an even wider donor base. So a really successful standout campaign in many ways. A second example that I want to share with you is that of Ayúdame a sonreír ante el cáncer. Help me to smile in the face of cancer, shall we say. This is a very small Mexican organization, and they actually don't have any full-time staff. They're entirely staffed by volunteers, and they help children and families suffering from cancer, mostly in Mexico City. What was outstanding about the ASAC campaign was that they chose to run it entirely on WhatsApp messages. Now, I don't know if you're all familiar with WhatsApp. It's a really high-profile messaging social media tool that most people have on their smartphones. It works very well in Mexico with a very high penetration of users. But the same lessons could be applied to any social media messaging platform. Here are some examples of the actual messages they use with the permission of ASAC. As you can see, they first of all send out messages explaining the overall focus of the campaign. So a typical message like the one on the left would have said something along the lines of, "Hi, we're committed to accompanying children and their families in their cancer treatment, and we've set a new goal to begin raising funds to color the walls of the hospitals, the children's wards in the hospitals. Thanks for taking part in the kickoff for this movement. Help us here." And there's a link to their project page on HIPGive. They say every peso counts, the hashtag for the contest. And they send out messages like this in groups and individually on WhatsApp to all the people that they've come in touch with as an organization. They back this up then later on with a specific message. You see this in the middle message. The project will be on the platform from the 31st of May, but today, in capital letters, we'll be competing for extra funds in the following times: 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Please help us at the beginning of every hour. Your donation will be greater. Thank you. And I love the way how they write the gracias in capital letters with the double exclamation marks. And so that's a really good way of getting the information out there and right into the hands of people, because even though we talk about the importance of social media, like traditional social media for crowdfunding, such as Facebook, Twitter, even Instagram, and many experts still talk about the primacy of email as a way of communicating your ask, I think it's true nowadays that there's so much information that it can be overwhelming, and yet messaging is still something that we do daily, every day, many times a day, and it somehow feels more personal. And that's something that ASAC really tapped into, because you'll see in the third message, and this is a short screenshot from somebody who's actually given. At the top they say, "Listo mi chula," I've done it, my beautiful. And you can see then below, they thank you, that you're the best, Rami, thank you, and all the little emoticons that make it so fun and so friendly. Now, many people think that social messaging, that this type of writing, emoticons, you know, the more kind of young way of writing is not appropriate for a fundraising campaign. But in fact, I think that this very warm, very personalized messaging was just the key to success for ASAC and how they raised and surpassed their goal in this campaign. This is Lisette. She's the president, and she's also the one who coordinated this campaign. I had the privilege of speaking to her, and she said, "We're a small organization, and although we have over 2,000 emails, we feel like a big family. So it made more sense to use WhatsApp to communicate, to make it more personal, and show that the request to donate came from a trusted source." And that's a key point as well. There's a long-standing saying that fundraising is like friend-raising. And the best way to raise money is by creating friendships, by creating trust. And you'll also note that it's much more likely that someone will donate to a cause, to an organization, to a campaign, if a friend asks them to do so, because of the nature of, shall I say, positive peer pressure because of the trusted friendship there. You're asking me to do this, I trust you, therefore I trust this organization. And messaging really communicates trust in a way that email doesn't do so much anymore, because we think of email as being a mass concept, not as being so personal. And even in the way that we think of Facebook and Twitter now as being very, even commercial in many ways, very much a broadcasting source and not a one-to-one messaging source of information. So if you think that messaging could be something that works for you, here are some of the things you could be thinking about for your next campaign. Do investigate, instead of using broadcasting on traditional social media, to use social messaging. In this case, WhatsApp was a definite winner in Mexico because of the huge number of people using it. But it may be that where you work or for your audience, there's a different messaging platform. Snapchat is really huge now among younger generations. It could be that you use just traditional text messages on the phone. Find out what works for you and integrate it into your campaign. However, it's not just a case of sending out those messages. You really also need a system to help initiate conversations and respond to questions. It has to be a two-way conversation on a messaging platform. What was really interesting when we spoke to Lisette, and what she said was that at first it didn't seem like the messages were working, and they got so many messages back from people saying, "Excuse me, what? I don't understand. Can you explain that a little bit more?" And she and her team would always take time to get back and answer every single one of those messages, explaining more, giving more information, putting it in different words so that people understood the importance of the campaign and how with even a small donation they could make a difference. So it is important that you share those roles with, with a couple of people, especially if you expect to have a lot of responses, and try and be as punctual as you can in responding to queries and questions. And if you don't get those queries and questions, well then you get in touch with people, initiate those conversations, ask them, are they interested, why they would like to give, how much they could give, and create that relationship. Friendships are based on relationships, they're based on two-way conversations. So that's something that's really important to make this work for you. And finally, as I mentioned, talking about the language, the vocabulary, it's really important to use a friendly, informal tone. It will seem very strange if you use the same language that you request an institutional grant as you do on your WhatsApp messages. So be friendly, use in words that inspire, that motivate, and it's really important to show very authentic gratitude. One thing that Lisette has really taught us is the importance of getting back to every single donor and saying thank you in the most sincere way, in the most personalized way that you can. Obviously, because it's true that every donation counts and we should be grateful, but also it makes a lot of sense that if you're going to be coming back to those people in the future for more asks, then it's great that they feel very much thanked for their previous contributions. So that's one way, or another way, that you could create a really standout campaign, and by switching from using your traditional email or your social media to using social messaging. And our third strategy for creating a standout campaign is that of storytelling. Now, you're probably a bit either bored or indifferent to storytelling because you've heard so much about it recently, or maybe you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed by the whole concept. Well, we're going to delve into it a little bit, and I have to make a confession first. I lied when I said that we had a real-life example from HIPGive. In fact, on HIPGive, there's an awful lot of great examples of stories being told, but I couldn't just find that one where I knew that the story was the real 100% cause of the success of the campaign, that made it a really standout campaign. But I think you guys should take that as a great piece of news, because there's a gap in the market. If you can create that campaign that creates a standout story, a really inspiring story, then first of all, I think you have a really great chance of meeting and surpassing your fundraising goal. And also, I'll be able to champion you as the next great thing on HIPGive. So, in the hopes that that will be you, that you will create that standout campaign based on a story, here are some ideas of how to go about it. The first, and I think the most important thing, is that you need to know what a story is all about. It's not a presentation. It's not just you talking about what you do. It's not even a person, a beneficiary, just talking in first person about what their own experience as being their testimony. That could be a story, but it's not necessarily a story. And that's why I set aside many of the great examples that we do have on HIPGive, because they're not quite those inspiring stories that motivate people to give because of the experience and the transformation. And that's what stories are about. They are about a movement from a previous situation to a transformation, what many storytellers resort to as the dramatic arc, a before and an after. Now this is a basic outline of a dramatic arc. You start with an exposition and introduction to who the protagonist is. You have to show that there's an incident, that there are obstacles that have to be overcome. So you rise obstacle, obstacle, obstacle up to the climax. Then that's something remarkable that happens. And finally, by the end, there's a resolution or a denouement. Now, I won't go into a theoretical storytelling class here, but I do think it's important to know that not all presentations or not all crowdfunding stories are really tapping into the power of the transformational story that will work best. What I do know is that there are 3 common ways of telling stories that fit into this mold, or 3 perspectives, shall we say. The first is the story of the protagonist, the second is the founder's story, and the third is the story of the work that is done. And I did want to give you some real-life examples of how other organizations are doing this and going about it. So here's a couple of links, and you can check out these videos in your own time. The first kind of story, that of the protagonist, is because the most powerful stories are told in the first person by people who have gone through an experience. And for social impact organizations, in many cases, that's a beneficiary or a participant of the project. But oftentimes that can be difficult as well, because the participants are not often the best or the well-placed people to narrate their experiences. They're not born storytellers. So while it's very genuine, it might not be the best promotional material for our campaign. And also we have to be very respectful of their own experiences. So I love these 2 examples. In the video for Slay Childhood Cancer, you see a parent of a child with cancer talking about his story and telling the story of her battle with cancer and how that's affected him and the family. And it's very authentic, it's very moving, because he's emotionally involved. He's a parent, he's a father. And I think it's a great way of telling a story without having to resort or finding that perfect participant directly. And in the video for Shutesbury Library, the really interesting thing is that the protagonist is not a person, but is the library itself. And it's a great example of how you can create a low-budget storytelling video and have lots of people take part as a way of showcasing the protagonist, which was the library in this case. If you think that because of the characteristics of your organization or your specific project, you have a charismatic founder, well then you could tell a story from the founder's point of view. Many organizations are set up by a very charismatic, intrepid, dramatic person who will go all out to help make change in this world. And they're often great storytellers. So if you're going to take that approach, my recommendation is that you do need to make sure that it's going to be authentic and that people are going to be able to relate to that person, that they come across as having a really sincere interest and knowledge and not of just wanting to be a protagonist themselves. So an example here is the Cuddle and Kind video, where it's a couple who started the social impact project, and they tell their story. And I think it works very well because while the project is about helping children in need, the video itself is telling a story that appeals to people like the founders. So we get the genuine, the authenticity of it, that they're a middle-class couple appealing to other middle-class couples and telling a story that will resonate with that particular audience. So the key to doing a really good founder story is matching the audience. The type of person that will relate to the founder needs to be your audience for that type of a story. And finally, if you want to tell a story of the work that is done, this is a great example of a project that was done to crowdfund for a Chicago playground. And it's a great dramatic arc because they, from the beginning of the story, they show the aspirations of the children who want to play. I want to have a slide. I want to have, swings. And then they build the story about how complicated this could be and the different obstacles that got in the way. They interview a lot of different people, so it's a dynamic narrative but it tells the story of the actual work that was done very, very clearly. So those are a couple of ideas that you could check out in your own time, or if you have other great examples of stories, please do share them with us. We're really interested in building up even more examples and learning tips from other stories. Now, it might seem from those examples that storytelling is all about videos, and that is not the case. I do want to be very clear that there's more ways to tell a story. On the left, there's an example of the great organization Charity Water. Great because they've really latched on to storytelling in a big way, and they actually use the site medium.com to share a lot of stories, and instead of signing up for a typical newsletter, you can actually sign up for their story feed. And I love it because they use the videos, they use the text, and they stick to that dramatic arc so clearly that you can't help but feel involved and feel inspired by the stories that they tell of the people they help. And if you think that you're still not the best storyteller, that you're not going to write the next, world-changing article or story, well then don't worry, because you can do it through photos and through very short text as well on social media. And this on the right-hand side is an example from Humans of New York and their Instagram feed. And this particular photo and mini story, it's only about 4 or 5 lines, was actually the starting point for a crowdfunding campaign that ended up raising $1.2 million. So that just shows you the power of the story. And in only 5 lines, they talk about a story of transformation. So your story doesn't need to be long to make an impact. You can use photos to make an impact. And actually, we were just talking about it in HIPGive today, how Instagram is a really good platform, and they've just launched Instagram stories. So I just wanted to put this in quickly. You can tell inspiring stories on Instagram. If you follow HIPGive, at HIPGive on Instagram, you'll see at the top now we're using HIPGive stories. You can click on the logo for HIPGive, and you'll see some very short little things. Now, because it's called Instagram stories, does not necessarily mean that everything there will be a story. But my challenge or my invitation to you is to think about ways that you can tell those quick stories, the protagonist stories, the founder stories, or the work that you do stories in short videos or images or texts on social media like Instagram. It's a great opportunity. And if you want to see how HIPGive are doing it, well, now you know that you can follow us. And there's actually more information there on that link about how you can use Instagram stories for your organization. So I hope this has been useful in letting you see how you can make a standout campaign in a variety of different ways. Just to recap what we've been talking about today, our first invitation is for you to participate in Hispanic Heritage Latinos Give Their Vote contest on HIPGive. The 27th of September is the Matching Funds Day, but all throughout September and October in Hispanic Heritage Month, we'll be waiving our fees, our admin fees. It's a great time to be crowdfunding on HIPGive because we'll have a lot more visibility, a lot more promotion of all the projects on the platform. So do get involved. And you find out at least 3 ways or 3 ideas of how you can create a really standout campaign, be it for Hispanic Heritage or later on in the year on our future contests for Crowdfunding Day Mexico or for Giving Tuesday. Think about the way you frame your project that can lead you to greater success. Think about how you can create much more warmer, friendly, personalized messages as a way of reaching out to people. Like we were saying, the very importance of campaign execution. One way is how you set up your project, but as you agreed with me, 75% of you said that campaign execution is the most important, and maybe warm, personalized messaging is a way of doing that. And also telling stories that inspire action is another great way to make your campaign a standout campaign. I hope that's been useful. If you have any questions, please do share them. You can do so on the questions part of the GoToWebinar panel. You can also get in touch with us in any way you want. Our emails were at the start of the presentation. You can email accounts@hipgive.org, which is our general email. You can get in touch on social media. We're always willing to help you out. And just let me say before we open up for questions, here's a reminder of our Matching Funds contest calendar and webinars, which I'll leave on the end of the presentation. Now we'll be sending out this presentation to you so you can check out all the information. Gloria, Eileen, I don't know if you've had any questions while I've been talking, or is there anything else you want to add while we wait and see if people have questions for us?
No, this was great, Anita. Thank you so much. And yes, I just want to invite everyone to enter their questions on the box on the right. If not, like Anita said, we're here as a resource to you after this webinar, and you can reach out to us directly. Also, we will include you in any future communications about this campaign if you continue to have an interest in participating. And yes, we encourage you to get started as soon as possible so that you can have your campaign up and running by mid-September.
Okay, well, we have some messages coming in, no direct questions. Well, hopefully we've covered everything then. I mean, we would just call it a day there. We'll be sending out the presentation by email. Get in touch if there's anything else you need to know. And happy crowdfunding. Thank you very much, everyone.